Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making Becky Excell's gluten-free short crust pastry. These are the things you're going to need. Some baking beans, and I've just picked these up in Home Bargains. We have got a mixing bowl, this one is plastic. We've got some grease-proof paper, already pre-scrunched, ready just to make it a little bit easier. We have a 23 centimeters fluted tart tin with a removable base. We have got some scales, mine are digital. We have a measuring jug with 2 large eggs. We have 145 grams of cold cubed butter, unsalted. We've got 300 grams of gluten-free plain flour plus extra for dusting. We have got 1.5 teaspoons of xanthan gum. I've got just 1 egg white ready for brushing. Then I've got 1 tray just to pop it on to make it easier to lift it in and out of the oven. Now, depending on whether you're making sweet or savoury pastry, you're either going to need 3 tablespoons of caster sugar for sweet or 1 teaspoon of salt for savoury pastry. So I'm going to start off with weighing out our flour. So like I said, 300 grams of plain gluten-free flour. Mine is from Asda. Then I'm going to pop in my xanthan gum in with my flour. So 1.5 teaspoons. Sometimes I double up on the recipe of the pastry just to save a bit of time in advance for next time. Give that a good mix together just to combine the flour and the xanthan gum. Once you've done that, you're going to add in your butter. This is the messy part. Use your fingers, get stuck in there and rub the butter in with the flour and xanthan gum, and you're going to create little breadcrumbs basically. Takes a very good amount of time doing this, so you need to allow yourselves a good amount of time and be very patient. It does make your hands ache actually if you're not used to doing it, but it is also good fun. There we go, nice fluffy soft breadcrumbs made there. So next thing I'm going to do, because I'm making savoury pastry, I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of salt, just table salt, and just mix that in. I did find this a little bit salty, to be honest with you. I followed the recipe exactly and I did find it a tiny bit too salty, so if I were making this again in the future, I would potentially only add half a teaspoon to see what it was like. So I'm whisking up my 2 large eggs. Now I'm going to add a little bit at a time and just cut it into my pastry. I'm just using like a butter knife just to cut it in. You can mix it with your hands if you want. I really don't think it matters too much how you mix it in, as long as it does combine well. You'll get the last of your eggs in there. And again, I'm just chopping that in. This is what it says to do on the original recipe, so this is what I am following. Once it starts to come together a little bit more, you'll be able to use your hands just to mould it a little bit into a dough. So now it's starting to get clumpy and all coming together. And you can get your hand stuck in again there. Little less messy than it was before. Just give that a nice good knead, make sure it's all combined and mixed together in the bowl. And once it's formed into a ball like this, into a nice dough, not too sticky and it's not too dry. If it does get too sticky, you can add a tiny bit of flour. If it's too dry, add a tiny bit of water. Now I'm going to pop it in a container and just pop it in the fridge for around about half an hour until it is nice and cold but still workable. So now I'm just going to give everything a bit of a clear up, because as with any kind of cooking, it creates a lot of mess. So I like to make sure I clear up as I go, because it just saves a lot of hassle down the line when you've got a big pile of washing up to do otherwise. About half an hour has gone by and I'm going to cook my pastry now. So I'm putting the oven on, preheating that to 200 degrees Celsius. Once your pastry has chilled for half an hour, you're going to place it onto a lightly floured surface. And then I'm going to lightly dust my rolling pin with flour as well. And I'm going to roll this pastry into a rough circle that's around about 2 centimeters thick. It can break apart easily, so you just have to be very, very, very gentle with it and just take it easy. Don't rush it too much. Just be very patient, and you can easily mold it back together if it does split a little bit in certain places. Now the pastry can be a little bit tough to roll out. Obviously it's chilled, so it's a little bit harder to physically roll, so you've got to push down quite hard actually, so with a little bit of force. So yeah, it makes your hands ache, it makes your arms ache. But we have now got our large circle ready to lift into our fluted tart tin. So this is not the way a lot of people do it. I've lifted it up with my rolling pin here. It's just the way that I find it the easiest, and I'm lowering it carefully onto my fluted tart tin. I'm just going to very gently lower the pieces in and push it in to the bottom. All the way around, very, very gently, because it does split very easily. Just want it to fit really nicely in there. And don't worry about the overhang, that will all come off at some point in a little while. Like I said before, don't worry too much if it does split in places. You can push it back together. It is not the end of the world. You've got a lot of overhang, like we said, so you can always use a bit of that and push it in to any gaps that you've accidentally created. Typically I've made this pastry a few times now, and this is the only time that it is all split up the sides, which is very typical because it's the time that I chose to video it. So it just goes to show we are only human and we do make mistakes, and that is okay. So what I'm doing now is I'm lifting the overhanging pastry, and with my thumb I'm squashing it 2 millimeters of the pastry back into the tin, just to give you a slightly thicker side, which will prevent the case from shrinking when you bake it. So now that you've gone all the way around, just leave the overhang in place for now. You're going to get a fork and you're just going to prick the base several times, very gently. Try not to go through all the way to the bottom of the base. And then just pop it back in the fridge for another 15 minutes just to cool and set it in place. So once it's been in the fridge, you're going to take your rolling pin again and roll it straight over the top all the way to the back, and it will just take off any overhang as well, and just flatten the top of your pastry. You can pop any leftover pastry back in the freezer. It does store pretty well in the freezer and in some airtight containers. So now what I'm going to do is very loosely line my pastry with the baking sheet. I'm going to fill it with baking beans or rice. Very gently push it into the corners. Try not to press it into the pastry. And I'm going to pop it in the oven now for 15 minutes. Make sure you put your tart tin onto a baking tray. It's just much easier to put in and remove then. So after 15 minutes, remove your tray and your tart tin. You can very carefully lift out the greaseproof paper with the baking beans on it or rice, and you're left with a partly cooked pastry case. So next thing I'm going to do is take my egg white that I prepared earlier and just very carefully brush all over. This helps to seal the bottom and the edges as well, and it gives it a nice little golden finish. Once I've done that, I'm going to pop it back into the oven for a further 5 minutes. And it comes out looking nice and golden and ready for your filling. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and you enjoyed watching.